plenary, which is on just energy transition. You see how the conversations are flowing in. Enhancing transparency and accountability in the African green mineral mining sector. It's my pleasure to welcome on stage Habeeb, Jaiyeola partner, mining sector, PwC. He'll be moderating this plenary on just energy transition. Please let's give him a warm round of applause. And just quickly, I'll welcome the other speakers on the plenary. First, representing the CEO and MD of the Rural Electrification Agency, Abba Abubakar, is Engineer Timothy Shekarau, Senior Technical Advisor at the Rural Electrification Agency. Please let's put our hands together for him. Also on this plenary is the CEO of PIN Africa, DRC, Benedicte Kalombo. Let's put our hands together. Also on this plenary is Marcelino Maningue, who is the manager, Mídia Lab, Mozambique. Let's put our hands together for him as well. And joining us virtually is a special assistant on community engagement to the Honorable Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Emily Ofodile, also on this plenary. Let's put our hands together for Emily Ofodile. So this panel is going to last for 30 minutes, and please let's engage. Lunch will be served right afterwards. Thank you very much. So, you can just take this. This is representing this. This is it. This is it. And this is virtual. So you can have it.
Okay, excellent. Good afternoon once again, everyone. My name is Habeeb Jaiyeola. I'm a partner and mining leader for PwC Nigeria. It's my pleasure to be here today. And I'm also very privileged to be moderating this session on just energy transition. I think the session we had before this sort of keys directly into this. Because when we speak to just energy transition, when we speak about green minerals, and all the conversations we always have in terms of climate change, we actually don't speak to the back end of those mineral extraction. What is happening on ground, what's happening in the communities, how it's impacting, the same challenge that we're trying to resolve, which is climate change. And most of the time we speak to the ESG, environment, social, and governance, but we actually miss out to a large extent the S of the situation when we don't speak to social matters on ground. Even the E, what's on ground in most of the African countries where the mining or extraction is being done. Now, there's this challenge which we have on ground here in Africa. Nigeria and most other African countries also have it. We are fossil fuel blessed, and we've been harnessing the power of our fossil fuel. But then, just energy transition requires that there's a transition from the fossil fuel to other mineral resources that exist in a transparent manner, in a manner that can be tracked, in a manner that also ensures that the ESG requirements are also adhered to. And this is always a problem because most of the time, mineral extraction always comes up with its own peculiar challenges. Now, we're going to dissect this particular topic today. And hopefully with my esteemed panelists, we'll be able to speak very, very informatively about this topic. So, I think currently I have Engineer Timothy representing the MDC of Rural Electrification Agency. You're welcome once again, sir. I have Benedicte Kalombo, which is the CEO, PIN Africa, DRC. PIN, nice to meet you once again. And then Marcelino Maningue, the manager, Mídia Lab, Mozambique. Excellent. And then we have Emily, who is the special assistant to the Minister of Solid Minerals on community engagement, who is joining us virtually. I'd like to confirm if Emily can hear us. Emily, are you online?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much, Habeeb.
Fantastic, Emily. Thank you so much for joining this panel. Now, I'll go straight to the conversation. And I would like to start with REA, just to be able to get that conversation on board. The last session did inform us about the fact that, REA and some other government entities, as it were, already have this plan towards helping underserved communities towards being able to gain access to power. The question then is, what can be done from that perspective, since we are focusing on underserved regions, to be able to get this energy in the sustainable way, hence getting it from the energy sources that key into the ESG framework that we're trying to drive, and hence not also adding to the same challenge which fossil fuel is getting for us. Maybe that is an intro answer that you may want to give to us. Thank you.
Okay. Hello. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So let me start by sending the apologies from my two bosses. That's the MD REA, Mr. Abba Abubakar, and the head of the Nigeria Electrification Project, Mr. Femi Akinrulude. Yes, REA has been at the forefront, and we're happy to say that we've had lots and lots of projects that I think Dr. Toby here mentioned some. And one of the key things that we've been able to do is having to get the rural unserved and the underserved. And we have currently achieved more than We have currently achieved more than 180, getting to 190, 200 of the mini-grids in the communities. So our key strategies that have often been talked about, I think the last two speakers talked about data. Data is very key, and no matter what policies you're able to develop, if you are not mixing it with having enough data, credible data, transparent data, you will be missing quite a lot. So in all the projects we're doing, we are very concerned about the environment. While trying to bring in green projects, we try to use a lot of the equipment that will not, at the end of their life, hamper with the environment. And one of the things we're talking about, the mining here, is the green technologies. Now, the batteries, as we all know, initially we have too much of lead acid batteries. Now we're going too much into lithium. Almost all our projects we've referenced, we've benchmarked all our projects to use lithium batteries. And of course, that's to take care of the environment effect. Lead acid batteries, 3 years, 4 years, they are gone, and you have to recycle, and so on and so forth. So what we're doing in the area is that we're making sure that we're developing frameworks where we take care of the technologies the way they are, and then we try to ensure that anything that has to do with living the communities better than we met it is in place. So we take care of the social aspects also. In all the projects that we've done and we're still doing, we make sure that the community is involved. The community, in fact, takes ownership of the project. So there are lots and lots of collaborations we have to do. We take our time, and that is even for the kind of projects we do. Now, there are other projects that the REA, like Dr. Toby said, through public-private sector participation, we develop, we give the developers all the enabling environment for them to come in, and of course, at the end of the day, they were able to get some grants. So we talk about performance-based grants. So the ESG, in order to make sure that the environment and the social aspect and the governance aspect, in the governance aspect, we have been rejuvenating, bringing in innovations into the kind of policies that government rule. I'm sure all of you are aware of the kind of policies that have been changed. One of the key issues that we're glad to say we spearheaded the tariffs that are imposed, the custom tariffs that are imposed on solar PV panels. We ensured that we're able to get to zero duty for the solar panels. And I think it's worldwide. It's something that is gladly welcomed because in the country now, you can see how everybody is going solar. And I think some people are adducing that why we're having a lot of grid collapse is that a lot of people have gone back to solar because of the Band A issue. So we're still the same power sector, and REA is spearheading, making sure that we roll out projects taking care of the ESG, as Abby mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the response. And picking from what you've really told us, a lot of things happening on ground. We have REA as an example, but really we know to a large extent many other communities may be facing some of this negative impact of energy transition, as we'll call them. I think one of the DRC, it's a very, very good example of a country that is a global top cobalt mining destination. However, there's a lot of conversation around this mining going on ground, and what we hear in the news, what we read in the papers, and all of that. So I think I'll bring the question to the CEO of PIN Africa. You are from the DRC, and you see firsthand how what we call green energy mining and its impact on ground, and some of those conversations that just go under the carpet in terms of what the world is hiding from discussing. I would like you to share with us what efforts would you expect? I mean, this is a room full of journalists. How do we bring those matters to the fore to ensure that the real impact of the just energy transition, using DRC as an example, is really clearly reflected in the narrative that goes around the world? Over to you.
Thank you. The first thing when people mention DRC and they mention the minerals, it's usually in the context of how rich it is. And the contrast is how poor the people are. And when DRC is spoken about and conversations are happening about, eco-environment and green environment, people don't usually go back to thinking of how deep the transitioning of energy is impacting individual lives. And communities are the most affected. Communities are the most ignored. Communities are bearing the brunt of the global community and the world looking after itself. So it's literally the DRC suffering in, how can I say, suffering in, I've lost my words, but the communities in DRC suffering in the benefit of the world becoming green. So it's very important for us. We're working with journalists on the ground, which is very dangerous because freedom, press freedom is another issue you have to look at. Safety is another issue you have to look at. You have huge corporations that are all over the mines, and information is not easily accessible. It's a risky job because this is the information you're meant to have access to. An example of inaccessibility of information is even how reports are filed, right? The lack of digitization, making the reports very hefty for journalists who are not experienced to be able to have the time to go through these reports because they can become tedious, it becomes a big task. Then then the discrepancy between the corporations and the government are being hidden. So then there's no accountability. And then there's, because of the risks that is associated with reporting such areas, a lot of journalists on the ground shy away from it and would report on what's going on in the communities and what, the lack of water or the impact of the mining, but without bringing in the data and the facts because they don't have access to it, and also because they're just scared for their lives. So essentially what we're trying to do now is to encourage journalists to be able to go after information, help them find ways and practices that would allow them to transparently report, how to follow up, essentially how to gather resources. So then people regionally and around the world could factually understand what's going on and how communities are being affected, but also tell first-hand stories from these communities.
Excellent. I would think the area that we need to learn from as a continent, and Nigeria just had what we call the Nigeria Mining Week last week, and these conversations also came up, and the ESG matter also was discussed, and there were several positive and not so positive views around our ESG transition. And I think one of the key matters that came up in last session, which keys very well into this session, is about the fact that many countries within the continent are even yet to be able to feed, and then what we know historically to be the area that we feed with is now required that it's moved to some other area and sources. And you did say something which is very important for us to say. You said where the DRC is suffering for the world to go green. That sounds like the DRC is not part of the world, because in all honesty, if DRC is not being green, the world is not achieving that transition objective in itself. So maybe I'll come to Mr. Maningue. Did I get that?
Maningue.
Maningue. Okay.
Maningue.
Maningue.
Maningue, yes.
Maningue.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So, the question we then ask ourselves is, other entities that speak to this matter, apart from journalists, we have several other entities, civil society groups, entities that speak to matters around what happens on ground and, harnessing the power of the people to be able to drive these conversations. Do you think a good job is being done at this point, bringing the matter to the fore, or we are just leaving this to when someone who will be bold enough, like you said, want to risk their lives, will come out to make that matter known? Are the civil society groups already, coming up to the plate around this matter on just energy transition, from your own perspective?
Let me begin. My name is Marcelino Maningue. I work for Mídia Lab. Mídia Lab is a non-profit organization that aims to fostering transparency, good governance, and human rights through the strengthening of media in Mozambique. In Mozambique, we have 43 languages. 42 are native, and one is official, is Portuguese. So none of them is English, and I will try to communicate in the best way I can so we can all be in the same page.
Thank you.
First of all, when we talk about this transition from clean and from dirty energies to clean energy, we have to see this in this way. We have a production level and we have a consumer level. In the production level, gas-powered cars are dirt because the exploration of oil can impact the environment and everything. And in the consumer level, it's also dirt because the cars can emit carbon, and carbon has its impact. But on the electric cars, the consumer level is clean. This is what we want, and this is what we like. It's clean. But on the production level, we still need to extract these minerals to produce batteries from the earth. And there is no way to extract these minerals on a clean system. There is no cleaner way to do this. But this is where it comes into play, the expression sustainable exploration. That means that we want to minimize the damages into the community and to reduce the impact on the environment. So one of the strategies that are widely used in many countries in different forms is the revenue sharing model. Each country that has every country that is a resource producer has its own model. For instance, there are countries that prefer direct transfers to the people that live in the local communities. It's example of some areas in Canada, in the state of Alaska, in USA. But there are countries that prefer the government to manage these funds. That's the case of Mozambique, that's the case of Nigeria. And in those countries that we prefer to be the government to manage these revenue sharing funds, we have two types. We have the ones that are central planified, the decision is centralized, like Russia. And we have ones like Mozambique that transfer the money that the state collects to the local part of the money to the local community. So in Mozambique, since 2013, the law was silent about what, how, and when this money will be allocated. But because of the work of the civil society organizations in Mozambique, the government implemented a law that stated 2.75% of the tax revenue that must go to the local communities. And set up three criteria. One is how to calculate this amount, and the second is what are the projects eligible to receive this funding, and these projects must be approved by the local advisor council. It works well in the paper, but in the practice, it doesn't work like that. First, one of the problems that the civil society had pointed out is the time of actually sending this money, because let's suppose that we have 12 months to execute the budget. But the budget is only approved since the approval of the funds until the actual transfer to the communities. It takes 9 months. And in 3 months, the local district that holds the money has to approve the projects with the local council, advisor, and has to start a procurement process. In 3 months, it's not possible. So what's happening? If a community needs to receive $10 million in 1 year, they cannot use that amount of money in 3 weeks, in 3 months.
Absolutely.
So the money that they don't use, the law states that they must be transferred back to the central government. So they can see in the paper that we have $10 million, but they can actually use $100,000. The other problem is the mismanagement of the funds. We must not confuse the state budget that it's allocated to the district and this 2.75%. This 2.75% must be used only with the approval of the local advisory council. But sometimes the district government just appears and say, we built this school, we renovated this health center, but with whose money? The money from the district or the money that it was supposed to go to the communities?
Oh, I see.
And the third problem that the civil society pointed out was, let me just describe two things: local communities and affected communities, because sometimes it's misleading. Let's suppose that we do have community A, B, C, and D. And community A welcomes a project. Let's call this project Kaim. Project Kaim, there is a river on this area that all of the communities use. But Project Kaim diverts this river to the exploitation zone. So now this is affecting not only community A, but it's affecting community A, B, and C. So this is why we call it affected communities. So going to the third issue is the amount, 2.75. It's not enough to cover all of these communities.
Communities, yeah.
So the civil society, through many organizations, including Media Lab, including SIP, and WILSA, and many others, fought to increase this amount. And in 2023, it was approved, an increase from 2.75% to 10%. It's good. It's good. It's not bad. It's a step. From this 10%, 2.75 still goes to the community, real community, and then the 7.25 goes to the district and the local, the district and the provincial, like federal state. Yeah? So now we have a separate management. We have a separate management. So this was done by the pressure of the civil society organizations.
Excellent. I think that's a key learning point for Nigeria when we look at it, because the civil society and the impact, like you did rightly say, can clearly bring results, and we all need to hold ourselves responsible when we don't see progress. We all need to contribute our own quota to that area of development. So I will take that question now to Emily Ofodile from the Ministry of Solid Mineral Development. Emily, can you confirm you are still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right. Thanks, Emily, and thanks for your patience online. You represent the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, and the question really to anyone who has been listening to the conversation all along will be around, where we have regulatory bodies who already have that responsibility to monitor some of those rules that are already on ground. So it's not that we don't have those rules. We have some environmental rules. We have some community development policies. We have several matters which, apart from the Mining Act, which is currently being reworked, which we are hopeful we get an update soon. There are several other regulations on ground. The question then is, what are those enforcement and compliance responsibilities, and how can those regulatory bodies effectively perform their roles towards enforcement and compliance?
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, the ministry is saddled with the responsibility of enforcing regulations in the industry. And it starts from, acquiring the right license to mine, which is the MCO, the Mining Cadastral Office. After which the Mines Inspectorate Department is in charge to ensure that activities that the mining companies are supposed to report to the state and see that they have, they put in place everything that is required of them to mine responsibly. However, because we know that Nigeria also, as other developing countries, we are more artisanal in structure, small-scale miners and artisanal mining. We don't have much of the junior mining companies. So the Mines Inspectorate is saddled with the responsibility of enforcing regulations in the industry. However, we now have what is called the Mines Marshal, who, given with the authority of the Honorable Minister now, has seen that these people are saddled with responsibility to survey, to put surveillance in our mines, because we don't have the requisite funding for the industry as it should be to monitor activities as it should be. And I'm emphasizing on, the issue of monitoring, because without effective monitoring, we can't see that mining is done more responsibly and that the wealth is shared across inclusively for the nation. So the Mines Inspectorate and of course the Mines Marshal and the community have a huge role to play to report issues where they see that, of course, the law has it in place that if you do not have consent, you are not supposed to mine, because the mining host community is supposed to give you consent before you can mine. And the issue that pertains to also revenue, the Revenue Mobilization Fiscal Commission is also there to monitor what is going on with our industry as regards revenue. NAITI also has that mandate to see that revenue are captured appropriately. So there are just multi-sectors that are involved also to regulate and see that the mining is done properly and are there to monitor what goes on in our mines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. You've mentioned some other agencies that we're hoping will be able to show up today, like NAITI, but you've also did mention what that's part of their regulatory functions, and also a lot of things that is currently going on with the Ministry of Solid Minerals today. Unfortunately, time is not my friend. I can see this red screen telling me time's up, so I need to sort of wrap it up. So I would like my panelists to give me closing remarks just within a minute, and I'll have to time that minute. Just your final closing thoughts on this particular topic. I'll start from Engineer Timothy. Just your final closing thoughts in 1 minute, please.
Okay, thank you. I believe if our MD is here, he's going to mention that the REA is ready to collaborate with the Ministry of Mines to be able to give them the success story on how we're able to get across to achieve the great success we've had developing our data-driven events looking at all the things that are required about having to comply with the environmental, the social, and all the regulatory aspects. REA has done very much, and we've been able to make sure that the policies are in the right place so that accountability, traceability, and everything that has to do with mining, by duplicating what the REA is doing, I do believe that they will be able to achieve much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that closing remark. And then I go to Benedicte Kalombo. Your closing remark, please.
As I mentioned earlier, I think our main concern is always about the community and those who are impacted by the abundant, rich area that they live in of minerals. So our main aim, and we want to create a foundation for legal and policy reform around mining in DRC, and journalists and the media can definitely help in terms of being able to keep the public well informed, civic society, taking in the right approaches with investigative journalism, the resources, and everything that is required in order to transparently report, so then the communities who are serving the world could also be served in safety.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that remark as well. And then I go to Mr. Marcelino Maningue.
Yes, we as civil society organizations, we have the ability to capture funds. We also, in Mozambique, and I think all over the world, the newsrooms are struggling. And we have the ability, we have the knowledge to capture the funds that are available outside, and we must continue transferring these financial resources to the newsrooms, and we must continue to capacitate people to understand how to calculate these taxes, how to investigate these issues. And yes, we must continue. And if you see the project that we had that dealt with these local communities, we had one project in, it lasted from 2019, 2020, and 2021. The project ended. So we say it was successful or not, we don't know. But in 2023, the government increased the tax revenue. This is a success. So we have to look at this in the long term. We have to be prepared to manage our expectations and look at the long term. Things that we are hearing here, things that we are talking here, maybe will not have any effect next week, but can affect something in 5 years
in the future.
From now.
Okay.
And we must resist.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that comment as well. And finally, Emily Ofodile, your final comments, please.
Okay, I have this mantra which I connected for myself, that mining starts with community and ends with community. So it's important that while we carve out and strategize on ways on how to mine responsibly, that we also ensure that this responsible sourcing that we always hear about is not just to know where the minerals are coming from, but we must see that there's a fair trade and equitable distribution of these resources for there to be backward integration to development and social economic development of our communities. It's very important.
Thank you so much, Emily. A round of applause for my panelists. Very, very good and quite insightful. Thank you so much, everyone. It was my pleasure to moderate this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you, Habeeb Jaiyeola, Partner Mining Sector, PwC. I would like to request that this panel be blessed with photographs, please.